My name is Dr. Farhan Riaz, and this is the computer vision course that I'm teaching at the National University of Sciences and Technology. I'm using the slides that have been prepared by Professor James Hayes as part of computer vision course that is being offered at Georgia Tech University. Okay, now in this lecture we are going to talk about the extraction of local image features in the images. We'll basically start with a quick review about the corner detection that we have already seen, and we'll have a look at its shortcomings, and we'll try to address these shortcomings, followed by the extraction of features from the images. So basically, when talking about the Harris corner detection methods, we mainly came to the conclusion that there are some changes taking place in the images to which the method of the extraction of corners is invariant. For example, over here we can see that if we basically apply a shift in the intensity and then we scale the image, then we have partial invariance because there is usually a threshold beyond which if our gradients are exceeding, then we need to define that particular point as a corner. So if that threshold is kept constant, then it is possible that some points are missed, but still we'll be able to grab some points. So we basically say that the method of corner detection is partially invariant to a fine intensity change. Then as far as the image translation is concerned, the derivatives and the window function, they are shift invariant. Therefore, we have the invariance on that level. And as far as the rotation is concerned, the corner location is covariate with respect to rotation, because if we basically rotate a corner that is there in the images, it will just reorientate the ellipse about in the previous section, and this orientation will not change basically the relation between the two different eigenvalues that we have along the major axis and the minor axis. But this is the problem that we have usually in the corner detection, where if we are scaling the image, then a corner in a small image region, once the region is scaled, then the corner does not stay a corner anymore, but it actually becomes a collection of edges. So the first thing is that we want to handle the scale changes in the images such that our methods are shifting our scale invariant. Let us now try to understand the scaling problem. In this slide, we have two different images, one on the left hand side, one on the right hand side. Effectively, both the image patches, they are trying to capture the same object which is lying over here. The only difference is that on the left hand side, the picture has an object of smaller size, and on the right hand side, the picture has an object of bigger size. Now, how do we find the corresponding patch sizes, the size of the patch here and the size of the patch here? Let's say if these are the two patches that correspond to the similar regions, this patch is of a higher size because the object is of bigger size. So how do we find the size of the patch over here? Well, in order to do this, let us now try to construct a graph in which we have the scale representation on the x-axis, and this is basically the size of the box that we have over here, the yellow box. And on the y-axis, we try to analyze what is the scale signature that we have in the image. Now, if the box is over here of this particular size, this is the scale signature for a picture in which the object is small, and this is the scale signature from the picture in which the object is large. So as you can see, the response is quite high in case of this image, where the scale where the object is small, because there are a lot of details which are there in this small box, whereas in this case the scale signature is low because the variations which are taking place within the image inside this box, they are very small. So that is the reason. Now as we start to increase the size of the box, Okay, now this is where we have reached the maximum scale in case of this image. But over here, in case of this image, we are still lying over here, and as we keep on increasing the scale, increasing the size of the box, the scale response still keeps increasing. And as the scale size becomes very big, this curve dies down sooner, and this curve takes slightly longer to die down as compared to this curve. Well, from here we can basically conclude that the scale information that we have in case of both these images, that information is different. It is actually significantly different, and therefore, if we apply the filters of the same size or the boxes of the same size on both of these images, it will not be a very reasonable option. Rather, we need to keep adapting the size of the boxes, and this is what was basically lacking in case of the Harris corners. And that is the reason that that the corner detection algorithms, they are not scale invariant. Now, an important question is, can we have a signature function that can be used for the detection of scale? Well, there are certain functions. For example, we have a difference of Gaussian function that is also called as a blob detector. Well, now, how can a difference of Gaussian for a particular image be generated? Well, this can be basically generated by taking multiple Gaussian filters with different standard deviations, and we convolve the image with all of these Gaussian functions, and then we try to calculate the difference between the filtered outputs. So the result that we are going to have will be a difference of Gaussian output. Well, now in easier visual demonstration of how the difference of Gaussian is effectively implemented is shown in the figure. So for example, if we have this figure over here, we'll construct a pyramid of the Gaussian functions in such a way that we'll first of all construct a Gaussian function, which is a Gaussian filter, and then we'll generate multiple Gaussian filters, all having different standard deviations. So all these are Gaussian filters with different standard deviations. Then we are going to filter these Gaussian filters with this original image, and let's suppose these are the filtered outputs. Now we'll take the difference of the filtered outputs from the consecutive filters, and that will give us the filtered outputs. For example, if we have 5 scales over here, then we'll be having 4 outputs representing the difference of Gaussian filtered responses. And This is how the filtered outputs are going to look like. And if we can see over here, when the standard deviation is very small, then the edges are going to be crisp, and as we start to increase the standard deviation, then the crisp details will be gone, and then we'll be having only the regions which have the variations taking place over a larger scale. Well, from the difference of Gaussian outputs, then we can calculate the local maxima within a local region in the images. So those local maxima will be indicating the maximum responses of the difference of Gaussian filter which is lying. So this means that at that particular pixel, the Gaussian at that particular scale, or the difference of Gaussian at that particular scale is the one that is giving the strongest response. So that is the relevant scale at which the information is represented at that particular pixel. And this is how the results look like. And the circles are scaled as per the standard deviation of the difference of Gaussian functions. So if we see over over here, these small circles, they are indicating the regions where the difference of Gaussian functions with a very small standard deviation is having a stronger response. And then we have the regions, having bigger blobs, or the bigger circles, which are basically indicating that these are the regions where the very strong variations are not taking place, but the variations are taking place over larger spatial locations, and therefore the difference of Gaussians corresponding to the higher value of standard deviation are responding strongly in those particular regions.